My name is Ellen Anderson, and I'm 25 years old. I live with both of my parents, just like we always have since I was little. Growing up, I always admired my dad. He runs his own business and is constantly busy. He's hardly ever home, but whenever he gets a break, he makes sure to spend time with me. On his days off, he dedicates most of his time to being with me. He's an amazing father. Now, my mom is a completely different story. As far back as I can remember, I don't think I've ever seen her work a day in her life. She's always been the one taking care of things around the house, but she's never helped with my dad's business or even held a job outside of the house. I always knew we were financially comfortable, especially because my mom spent most of her time dressing up and going out. But seeing her live like that made me realize one thing for sure: I never wanted to end up like her. Mom was never really into kids, and she barely paid attention to me growing up. There were times when I felt really lonely, but my dad was always there to fill that gap. I think he knew how distant my mom was toward me, so he made an effort to make sure I never felt left out or alone. At least, that's how I saw it. "Mom, I'm home," I called out one evening. "Oh, is it that late already? I'm heading out, so just grab a snack and watch the house, okay?" she replied. "Didn't we plan to go shopping today and make curry together?" I asked, feeling a bit disappointed. "Sorry, something came up at the last minute. We'll do it next time, all right," she said casually. As a child, my mother frequently broke promises like this, and she did it with such ease. At first, it used to make me cry, but over time I learned that when she made plans, they didn't mean much. I couldn't really rely on her words. My dad, however, was completely different. He never made empty promises. If he said he'd do something, he followed through no matter what. As time went on, my admiration for my dad only grew. I started to see him as reliable, someone I could truly count on. I even begged him to let me work in his company after I finished university. Being an only child, I wanted to take over the family business one day and carry on what my dad had built. After I turned 18, my dad began taking me out for drinks, teaching me so much about life and business. My mom, however, stayed on the sidelines, never really involving herself in raising me. There was only one time when my mom tried to intervene in my life. It was during my second year of college. "Dad, I want to work for you after I graduate. I've already started studying for it, and someday, I even want to take over," I told him one evening. My dad looked proud but thoughtful. Before he could say anything, my mom chimed in. "Amy, are you sure about that? A girl doesn't need to do that." "Why not?" I asked, already knowing where this was going. "You should find a good man and let him take care of you," she said in her typical tone. That was such a mom thing to say. I didn't feel like arguing with her, because I knew she would never understand. I didn't want to live the kind of life she had, just hanging on to someone else. I had always wanted to be strong and independent, someone who could stand on her own 2 feet. From that moment, I threw myself into my studies and graduated determined to join my dad's business. My mom didn't put up much of a fight after that. She just sighed and said, "If that's how you want to live, fine. Just remember, you'll suffer for not listening to me." So I did what I set out to do. I joined my dad's company, and the distance between my mother and me grew even more. On the flip side, my relationship with my father became stronger than ever. Looking back now, I don't think my mom was too thrilled about how close my dad and I had become. When I started at the company, my dad trained me seriously. There was a reason for that. My dad was sick, and though he didn't show it at first, I could tell. Over about 6 months, he introduced me to everyone I needed to know and taught me everything about the business. Then one day, he collapsed at work. He was rushed to the hospital, and from that point on, he spent the next 5 years fighting his illness. "Amy, how's the company doing? Is everything running smoothly without Dad?" my mom would ask, though she never really cared. "It's tough, but everyone's helping. I'll manage because Dad trusted me with it," I'd tell her. "Well, just so you know, if you, a woman, end up running the company into the ground, it'll be embarrassing. So, you better be prepared for that," she'd say. "Mom, it's sad that all you care about is how other people will judge us. You don't seem to care about the company or what Dad built." In those early days when my dad was first hospitalized, I argued with my mom a lot. My dad would still come to the office on his good days, but as time went on, he got weaker. The last year, he was almost entirely bedridden. The last time he came to the company, he said something that stuck with me. "This company and its people mean everything to me, but I have to let it go now," he told me, his voice soft but serious. "Amy, I've watched you grow and work over these past few years. I trust you to take care of this place. Can you promise me one thing?" "Of course, Dad," I said, already knowing what he was going to ask. "Please protect this company and everyone here for me. I don't know if I can ever be just like you, Dad, but I'll keep trying. I've always admired you, and I want you to be able to rest in peace, knowing I'll do my best." From that day forward, the title of company representative was passed on to me. I was so busy with the new responsibilities that I hardly had time to come home, especially since my dad was in the hospital most of the time. I made sure to visit him as often as possible, but my mom? She did the bare minimum, just bringing him clean clothes, and even that seemed like a hassle for her. It made me wonder what my mom really thought of my dad. Did she not care about him at all? Was she not grateful for all he had done? Or didn't she feel anything for him now that he was sick? I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pity for my dad. He had worked so hard for me, especially when I was younger, and I was determined to be there for him, even though my mom was indifferent. No matter how tired I was, I made sure to visit him regularly. This became my routine for almost a year until the day he quietly passed away in his sleep. When my father died, I was overwhelmed with tasks, so much so that I barely had time to process my grief. My mother, who had no clue about anything, left all the arrangements to me. She didn't lift a finger for the funeral or even the hospital paperwork. I didn't expect her to, really. She had spent her life doing nothing but living off my dad's hard work. So, I silently handled everything on my own. The day after the funeral, my mother approached me. "Amy, now that the funeral is over and everything is settled, I want you to leave this house. I've just inherited 100 million yen, so I have no need for you anymore." "Thank you," I replied, knowing this moment was inevitable. I had already come to the conclusion that continuing to speak to her was pointless. She clearly thought that money could replace everything, and that she could live a carefree life. I had so many questions, but I decided to pack up and leave without saying more. The next day, I called a moving service and sold everything I owned that was still in the house. My mother was shocked at how quickly I organized my departure, but there was one thing she didn't know. She claimed to have inherited 100 million yen, but in reality, my father had left me in charge of everything. I was the rightful heir. Not a single penny had been left to her. Before he passed away, my father made sure to entrust me with everything related to his finances. He had been firm about it. "Your mother doesn't understand anything about managing money. If she gets her hands on a large sum, she'll probably burn through it in no time. I want you to give her a monthly allowance, nothing more. If she complains, don't budge. Just tell her she won't get anything more than that." He had even joked, "If things get really tough, give her this." He handed me an SD card. "This is a video letter I made for your mother. Show it to her if she refuses to listen." I never thought I'd actually have to use it, but after the way she had been acting, I figured the time had come. After I left the house, I expected my mother to call me soon, but she contacted me much faster than I anticipated. "Come home immediately," she demanded over the phone. "Huh? What are you talking about?" "I'm working right now. I need to talk to you. Just come here quickly." I sighed. She was still as self-centered as ever. Begrudgingly, I headed back to my childhood home, bringing the SD card with me just in case. As soon as I walked in, she started accusing me. "You ran off with all of your father's inheritance, didn't you? I knew something was wrong when you left so quickly. Hand over his inheritance to me right now. How greedy can you be?" I responded, keeping my voice calm. "You can't even act like a decent mother, can you?" Without another word, I quietly handed her the SD card. "What's this?" she asked, confused. "Oh, I guess you don't even know how to watch it," I replied, mocking her. I pulled out my laptop, inserted the SD card, and hit play. The screen lit up with an image of my father, looking as healthy as he used to. I left the room, giving her privacy to watch it alone. I had never seen my mother stand up to my dad when he was alive, so I wondered how she'd react now, seeing him on the screen after his death. Would his message even reach her? When I returned to the room, my mother had finished watching the video. To my surprise, she was crying real, heavy tears. I could hardly believe it. I had never seen my mother cry like that before, especially not over my father. "Mom, are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned. She wiped her tears and nodded. "Yes, I understand now. I'll follow your father's instructions. From now on, everything will be in your hands. You can leave for today." I was taken aback by her sudden shift in attitude, but I didn't push her further. She probably didn't want me to see her in such a vulnerable state, so I left. For days, I couldn't stop wondering what my father had said in that video that moved her so deeply. I had my suspicions, but I never dared to watch it myself. Nearly a month passed without a word from my mother. I started to worry, so I decided to drop by the house during my lunch break, but she wasn't home. Later that night, I went back to check on her again. This time, the lights were on. "Mom, I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I came by earlier today, but you weren't here, and I got worried." "Oh, sorry about that. I was out working at my part-time job."
Yes.
A part-time job? My mother had never worked a day in her life. What had changed? "Yes," she said. "It's not much, but I'm doing what I can now." Still in shock, I asked, "Didn't you watch the video? It was meant for you, so I didn't watch it myself." She looked at me and said, "You should take it home, Amy. Watch it too." "Can I?" I asked, unsure if I was ready to know what had really changed her, and my mother handed me the SD card, saying, "Well, here you go." I could sense something was off about her demeanor, and it made me a little nervous about what my father had revealed in that video. After leaving, I returned to the office and sat down at my dad's old desk. Slowly, I inserted the card and pressed play. The video began with my father addressing my mother. "Honey, if you're watching this, it means you've been unable to communicate with Amy. First, I want to thank you for helping me raise her. Without you, I don't think I could have managed to run the business and care for Amy all these years." Something about the way he was speaking felt different, like there was more coming. Then my father dropped a bombshell I wasn't prepared for. "You've taken care of Amy, even though she isn't your biological child. I can never fully express my gratitude for what you've done, standing by my side all these years. But as a result, you had to sacrifice your own dreams, and I take responsibility for that because I allowed you to live a life of comfort. Now that I'm gone, I know you might struggle, and I'm deeply sorry for that." I gasped, blurting out the words, "I'm not her child." It was such a shocking revelation. But at the same time, a lot of things started making sense. Why my mother was always so distant, why I never quite felt loved by her. Even though she wasn't affectionate, she still took care of me, cooking for me every day and doing what was necessary for a child that wasn't her own. As the video went on, my father explained more. "I never registered our marriage because you asked me not to. You felt bad for your sister. I ended up supporting you, but I didn't do anything beyond that, and for that, I'm sorry. Now that I'm gone, I worry about how you'll live on. I hope you can find happiness, even without me." His words hit me like a wave. I sat there, staring at the screen, unable to process everything at once. I didn't know how to feel. My father had spoken so fluently, but what he said was completely new to me, and it was overwhelming. The next day, I returned to my mother. "Mom, I watched the video from Dad yesterday," I said. "You know the truth now," she replied flatly. "I raised you because your father asked me to, that's all." I took a deep breath. What happened to my real mother? She was my sister. You're the child of your father and my sister. She passed away shortly after giving birth to you, and in her grief, your father turned to me. I promised to help him raise you, and I became your mother. As my mother told me this, the puzzle pieces started falling into place. I understood why things had always felt a bit off. My mom used to work in a diner, and my dad would often go there to eat. She was lively and full of energy back then, with a dream of owning her own diner one day. But when she took on the role of my mother, she gave up on that dream. After hearing about her past, I realized why she'd been so distant with me all these years. My father's video had reminded her of the life she once wanted, and now she was trying to reclaim it. She was working part-time again, training to open a diner of her own. I should have done this a long time ago, she admitted. Working makes me happy. It suits me. I didn't know, I said, feeling guilty. I didn't realize you wanted to work. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Amy, she reassured me. I made the decision myself. I wasn't good with children, and I didn't handle things with you the way I should have. I caused you a lot of trouble. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was having a real conversation with my mother. It was like we were finally starting to understand each other. Since that day, we've had more heart-to-heart talks, and we agreed to use some of my father's inheritance to help her open her diner. Once my mother started working again, I noticed a change in her. She was much more humble, especially when the topic of money came up. The idea of using my father's funds for the diner was something she hesitated to accept, something unimaginable just a short while ago. I continued working at my job while also helping her with the preparations for the diner. This led to us seeing each other often, and for the first time, it felt like we were becoming a real family. My dad had left me in charge of the inheritance, and while my mother insisted on living off her own earnings, I made sure to promise her that I'd be there if she ever needed help. Promise me you'll tell me if you ever start to struggle. Dad trusted me to take care of you. I reminded her. I'll be fine, she said, smiling. I don't need much to live on my own, but for the diner's expenses, I'll rely on you. Of course. I'm excited to see your dream come true, I said. Finally, after all these years, we had found peace with each other. Even though she wasn't my birth mother, I realized that learning this truth had come at just the right time. The day before the diner's grand opening, my mom turned to me and said, "Tomorrow's the big day. My dream is finally becoming real." "I'm so proud of you," I told her. "Seeing you work so hard reminded me of how determined I am to make Dad's company thrive. I think watching you go after your dreams inspired me to chase mine again." "I couldn't have done this without you or your father," she said, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you so much, Mom. Promise me you'll always be my mom." "Amy," she smiled softly, "from now on, let's get along even better. We only have each other now." "That's true," I agreed, feeling a warmth I hadn't known before. When my father passed away, he revealed the truth, and I had to face the reality of my origins. But in doing so, my mother and I have grown closer. Watching her rediscover herself, I've even considered moving back to my hometown to live with her again. She worries about my diet, and I'm starting to think it might be nice to be together. My father would be surprised at how well we're getting along now. His legacy, his home, his company, and his love is something I'll protect with everything I have. And as part of that, my mother and I visit my father's grave, as well as my birth mother's, to update them on our lives. Through this journey, I've officially become registered as my mother's daughter, sealing the bond we've formed after so many years.